For 10 years, I watched the same 3 words appear on my phone screen. Insufficient funds. Not once, not twice. Over 400 times. I had a job. I paid my bills, most of the time. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't reckless. And yet, no matter how hard I worked, the number in my bank account never moved. Here's the strange part. I wasn't the only one. Right now, more than 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Not because they're bad with money, but because of something almost nobody explains to you. Something hiding in plain sight, in your paycheck, your bank account, and your daily habits. I didn't figure it out from a finance guru. I didn't figure it out from a book. I figured it out by accident after 10 years of failure. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. If you think this is just another video about budgeting better or cutting your coffee spending, wait until you see what was actually draining me for a decade. Because the truth isn't what you'd expect. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why so many hardworking people never seem to get ahead, no matter how much they earn. Let's rewind. 10 years ago, I was 24 years old, living in a small apartment outside Columbus, Ohio. I had just landed what I thought was a good job, $42,000 a year. Benefits. A desk with my name on it. I remember calling my mum that night and telling her, I made it. In my head, this was the beginning of everything. A steady paycheck, stability, maybe even savings. What I didn't know, what nobody tells you at 24, is that a steady paycheck is not the same thing as financial security. Those are 2 completely different things. And confusing them is exactly what keeps millions of Americans stuck for the first 2 years. Everything felt fine. My rent was $850 a month. My car payment was $310. I had a credit card just for emergencies. Nothing seemed dangerous. It was normal. It was what everyone around me was doing. But normal, it turns out, was the trap. The first sign something was wrong came in year 3. My car broke down, a $1,200 repair. I didn't have $1,200 sitting around. So I did what most Americans do in that exact situation. I put it on the credit card. At the time, that felt like a smart, responsible decision. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't taking out a payday loan. I was using a tool that literally exists for emergencies like this. That's what the credit card companies tell you, after all. What they don't tell you is what happens next. That $1,200 didn't stay $1,200. At a 24% interest rate, paying the minimum payment, which is what I could afford it, would have taken me almost 6 years to pay off. And I would have paid over $900 in interest alone on a single car repair. But here's the part that really matters. This wasn't a one-time event. 6 months later, my apartment's water heater flooded the unit below me, and my renter's insurance didn't cover it. Another $600. Back on the card, then a medical bill, then a broken laptop I needed for work, then a wedding gift I couldn't skip. One emergency became 5. 5 became a pattern, and that pattern had a name I didn't know yet. It's called the Debt Treadmill. And once you're on it, you're not walking forward. You're just trying not to fall. By year 5, I was making more money. I'd gotten 2 raises. My salary was up to $51,000. On paper, that should have meant progress. It didn't, because here's what nobody tells you about a raise. Your lifestyle rises with it. Psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it is one of the most quietly destructive forces in personal finance. When I made $42,000, I drove a used Honda. When I made $51,000, I convinced myself I deserved a nicer car, so I financed a newer one, adding $340 a month to my expenses. When I got another raise, I moved to a slightly bigger apartment. Higher rent. Every single time my income went up, my spending quietly followed it. Not because I was reckless, because that's exactly how the entire system is built to work. I want you to sit with that for a second, because this is the moment I started to understand something was fundamentally wrong, not with me, but with how I'd been taught to think about money. I had never once been taught the difference between an asset and a liability. Not in high school, not in college, my car, my apartment, my credit card. Every financial decision I made was based on gut feeling and social comparison. Not math, not strategy, and I was far from alone. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, because this next part isn't really about me anymore. It's about a system that profits from people staying exactly where I was. The average American household now carries more than $104,000 in total debt, according to Federal Reserve data, including mortgages, auto loans, student loans, and credit cards. Credit card debt alone crossed $1.1 trillion nationally for the first time in history. That number isn't an accident. It's not a coincidence. It's the outcome of a financial system that is, quite literally, engineered to keep money moving away from ordinary people and toward institutions. Let me explain what I mean, because this is the part that changed everything for me. Every time you carry a credit card balance, you are paying rent on money that isn't even yours. Every time inflation rises 3 to 4% a year, and your savings account pays you less than 1%, your money is silently losing value while just sitting there. Every time your paycheck arrives and disappears within days, you're not failing, you're functioning exactly the way the system is designed for the majority of people to function. This is what economists sometimes call the wealth gap machine. It's not a conspiracy. It's not hidden in a vault somewhere. It's built into interest rates, fee structures, marketing psychology, and financial literacy gaps that have existed for generations. I remember the exact night I started to understand this. I was 30 years old. I had just paid my minimum payments for the month, and I sat down and did something I had never done before in my entire adult life. I calculated my net worth, income minus debt, assets minus liabilities. The number was negative $8,400. 6 years into my successful career, working full-time, never missing a payment, and I was worth less than nothing. That number didn't just scare me, it broke something open in me. Because I finally understood this wasn't a spending problem. It was a knowledge problem. So I did what most people do when they hit a wall. Like that, I started searching for answers. Books, videos, podcasts, forums. For almost 2 years, I consumed information constantly, and most of it made me more anxious, not less. Then, almost by accident, I came across a concept that most personal finance content never actually explains properly. It wasn't budget better. It wasn't stop buying coffee. It wasn't even invest in the stock market, though that mattered too. The one thing that changed everything for me was this: stop treating debt like a monthly payment and start treating it like an interest rate war you're losing. Let me explain what that actually means, because this single mental shift is the thing that took me from negative $8,400 to a completely different financial life. Most people, including me, for years think of debt in terms of, can I afford the monthly payment? That is exactly the trap. Because the monthly payment is designed by the lender to be affordable enough that you never panic, but slow enough that you pay for years, sometimes decades, in interest. The real question isn't, can I afford this payment? The real question is, what is this debt actually costing me? And how do I attack the debt with the highest interest rate first, no matter how small the balance is? This is called the Debt Avalanche method, and it is mathematically the fastest way out of high-interest debt. Not the snowball method that most influencers talk about, paying off your smallest balance first for a psychological win. The avalanche method, attacking the highest interest rate first, because that's the debt actively bleeding you the fastest. When I applied this to my own debt, a 24% credit card, a 19% card, and a 6% car loan, I realized I had been doing it completely backwards. I'd been paying off my car loan faster because the payments felt bigger and scarier, while my credit card interest quietly ate me alive in the background. Once I flipped that order and threw every extra dollar at the 24% card first, something remarkable happened. The math started working in my favor instead of against me for the first time in a decade. But there was a second piece to this puzzle. And honestly, it's the piece that most financial advice completely ignores. I had spent years focused entirely on cutting expenses. Smaller apartment, no eating out, cancelling subscriptions. And while that helped, it had a ceiling. You can only cut so much before there's nothing left to cut. What actually accelerated everything was the other side of the equation, increasing income specifically to attack debt, not to increase lifestyle. This distinction matters enormously, and it's the part almost nobody talks about clearly. When I picked up freelance work on weekends, about $600 extra a month, I made a rule for myself that changed everything. None of that money was allowed to touch my lifestyle. It went straight to the highest interest debt, every single time, automatically, before I could even see it in my checking account. That one rule closed the loophole that had kept me broke for years, the loophole where extra income quietly becomes extra spending. Within 14 months of combining the avalanche method with income specifically earmarked for debt, I paid off $11,000 in high-interest debt. Not by winning the lottery, not by some miracle, by understanding for the first time how the system was actually built and refusing to keep feeding it. Now, here's where this story stops being just about me. Because what I experienced isn't unique. It's the exact financial pattern playing out across millions of American households right now. The Federal Reserve's own data shows that credit card interest rates have climbed to record highs, often over 24% on average, even as the base interest rate environment has shifted. Meanwhile, wage growth for most workers has failed to keep pace with the actual cost of housing, healthcare, and everyday goods over the past 2 decades. This is not simply about individual bad decisions. It's about an entire generation that was never taught the mechanics of interest, compounding, or debt prioritization, while simultaneously being marketed to constantly by an industry that profits directly from that gap in knowledge. Think about it. Most American high schools require students to learn about the Pythagorean theorem. Far fewer require a single class on how credit card interest compounds, how to build an emergency fund, or how a 401k match actually works. That's not an accident of curriculum design. It's a systemic blind spot that has existed for decades, and companies that profit from consumer debt have had zero incentive to fix it. This is the bigger picture behind my 10 years of struggle. I wasn't uniquely bad with money. I was a product of a financial education system that left an entire generation vulnerable, combined with a debt industry that is remarkably good at making high-interest borrowing feel normal, manageable, even responsible. So here's the one thing, the real answer the title promised you. It's not a single trick. It's not a hack. It's a mindset shift. Debt has a hierarchy, and if you don't know that hierarchy, you will always be fighting the wrong battle first. Understanding that the interest rate, not the monthly payment, not the balance size, not the emotional weight of a debt is the true enemy, changes every decision that follows. It changes which debt you attack first. It changes how you treat extra income. It changes how you think about every future purchase, because you start asking a different question. Not, can I afford the payment, but what is this actually going to cost me over time? 10 years after that first insufficient funds notification, my net worth crossed positive for the first time. Not because I got a massive raise, not because I got lucky, because I finally understood the mechanism I'd been fighting against. And once you understand a mechanism, you can beat it. If there's one thing I want you to take from this video, it's this. Being broke isn't a character flaw. It's usually a knowledge gap, sitting inside a financial system that was never designed to explain itself clearly to the people it affects the most. The system doesn't change overnight. Interest rates don't drop because you understand them. But your position within that system can change the moment you stop asking how to survive the month and start asking what's actually happening to your money behind the scenes. I spent 10 years learning this the hard way. You don't have to. If you're in the middle of your own version of this story right now, drowning in payments that never seem to shrink, drop your current net worth moment in the comments. Not the number itself, just where you are in the fight. Positive, negative, or somewhere you're still afraid to calculate. You might be surprised how many people in this comment section are standing exactly where you are. And if you want the next breakdown, the exact system, I used to go from negative $8,400 to positive, step-by-step subscribe, because that's the video I'm making next. The debt isn't just numbers on a screen. It's a system. And the moment you understand the system is the moment it stops controlling you.